Sri Gauranga Lila Smarana Mangala Stotram. Auspicious verses for remembering Lord Gauranga's pastimes by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. Verse 1. In the town of Mayapur in Bengal, just after sunset on the evening of the 23rd Falguna 1407 Sakabda, answering to the 18th of February 1486 of the Christian era, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took birth as the son of Jagannatha Misra from the ocean of Srimati Sachi Devi's womb. I meditate on that Lord Chaitanya, whose spiritual form is manifested by his own cit potency. Verse 2. Growing up in Bengal, which is like the crown of the pious land of India, Lord Chaitanya became known by many different names, such as Vishwambara, Prabhu, Hari, Divya, Gaurachandra, Nimai, and Isa. I continuously meditate upon that Lord, who purifies the age of Kali. Verse 3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Hari, accepted the luster of the ecstatic love offered to him by Srimati Radharani, which caused him such great delight. In this way the Lord assumed a beautiful and charming form with a complexion as brilliant as gold. As a small child playing and crawling about the courtyard of Jagannatha Misra's house, that Lord Hari delighted the ladies of the neighborhood. Offer my respectful obeisances to that golden Lord Hari. Verse 4. When Lord Anantadeva assumed the form of an ordinary snake and entered Jagannatha Misra's courtyard, young Visvambara immediately began to play with him. When the distressed relatives appealed to him, Visvambara went away from the snake. Repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances to that Lord Visvambara. Verse 5. When in his childhood he heard the words, say the name of Lord Hari, he would immediately stop crying. In this way the ladies of the village would continually sing the holy names of the Lord. When he had eaten clay, he spoke splendid and pure philosophy of real spiritual life to his mother. Offer my respectful obeisances to that Lord Gaurasundara, who became the shelter of the chanting of the holy names and thus removed the impurities of the age of Kali. Verse 6. In the beginning of his boyhood Lord Gauranga performed childish pranks in the homes of the Brahmanas. On the day of his first schooling, accompanied by his boyhood friends, he went to the Ganges at the time of bathing and splashed water on the leaders of the Brahmanas, agitating them and causing them to flee. One meditated on that Lord Gauranga, the supreme prankster and the monarch of all playful boys. Verse 7. Young Lord Chaitanya ate the rice cooked by a guest, who was like the jewel among the Brahmanas traveling to places of pilgrimage. Afterwards, the Lord mercifully revealed the truth of his actual spiritual identity to that Brahmana. Carried away on the shoulders by two thieves, the young Lord bewildered them with his illusory potency. I offer my respectful obeisances to that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who delights the pious devotees and punishes the impious. Verse 8. Climbing on the back of a mendicant devotee of Lord Shiva, young Lord Gauranga glorified Lord Shiva's transcendental qualities. The young Lord became blissful by performing these pastimes. Offer my respectful obeisances unto that Lord Gauranga, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is a devotee of his devotees. Verse 9. One day, instead of going to school, young Lord Gauranga met the young girl Srimati Lakshmi Devi. Accepting the sweets lovingly offered by her, he offered her an auspicious benediction that greatly pleased her heart. Later, in order to prove that he had actually gone to school, he covered his hands with ink marks, and in this way satisfied his relatives. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, the supreme enjoyer of transcendental mellows who has completely enchanted my mind. Verse 10. One day, handsome young Lord Gaurachandra sat on rejected cooking pots, and when his mother chastised him for it, he replied by speaking incomparable transcendental philosophy. I repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances to that Lord Gaurachandra, the supreme object of worship for those who travel on the path of impersonal philosophy. Verse 11. Seeing his mother suffering with a grave disease, young Lord Gauranga, full of Asan's love, quickly brought her 2 white coconuts for medicine. Repeatedly offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Gauranga, who is his mother's devotee. Verse 12. When his elder brother, Visvaripa, left the house to take sannyasa, Lord Gauranga quickly satisfied his grief-stricken father by speaking sweet words, and when his father died the Lord consoled his grieving mother. I meditate on pleasing Lord Gauranga, who is his mother's devotee. Verse 13. Following the sacred rites of marriage, he accepted Srimati Lakshmi Devi, the daughter of Vallabhacharya, and devotedly fulfilled his duties as a householder. A professional scholar, he traveled to East Bengal, and earned great wealth by lecturing. Meditate upon that Lord Gauranga, the best of husbands and the form of religion. Verse 14 Lord Gauranga met Tapana Misra in Benares. Returning home to find his mother mourning Lakshmi Devi's death, he consoled her with pleasing words describing the spiritual truth. I meditate on tranquil Lord Gauranga, who gives the happiness of renunciation. Verse 15. At his mother's request, he married Srimati Visnupriya Devi. On the bank of the Ganges with his many disciples, he cut down the pride of Kasava Kashmiri, who had formerly conquered all directions. The jewel of learned scholars and the moon of Navadvipa, he enjoyed many pastimes. I offer my respectful obeisances to him, the lion among the scholars. Verse 16 With playful logic defeating all Brahmana Smartas, Naryayikas, and Tantrikas, he shone with great splendor. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Gora, the form of transcendental knowledge. Verse 17. He became cured of disease by drinking the water of a Brahmana's foot. I meditate on Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the protector of Varnasrama. Verse 18 Surrounded by Brahmanas and offered respects by all the demigods, he obtained the Hare Krishna mantra from the mouth of his guru at Gaya. When he returned to Bengal, on the preverse of suffering from a grave disease, he revealed the truth. Meditate on Lord Gauranga, who is the fork of a devotee expert at tasting the 9 nectars of devotion. Verse 19 Ceaselessly discussing the truth of devotional service, the great devotees headed by Advaita Acharya took shelter of Lord Gora by chanting the holy names of Lord Murari. When Lord Nityananda came, Lord Gora displayed the supreme personality of Godhead's pastimes. I offer my respectful obeisances to all-powerful Lord Gaurasundara who, revealing his 6-armed form, delights the eyes. Verse 20 Suddenly displaying Lord Varaha's handsome form, he was very merciful to Murari Gupta. During the worship of Vyasa, he became Balarama and began to call for Madhvika liquor. Meditate on him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verse 21 Confident that Lord Chaitanya is in reality the Supreme Lord Krishna, Lord Advaitakandra and his associates worshipped him at Srivasa's house. Remember Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the shelter of Sridhara and the other devotees. Verse 22. I meditate on the golden moon of Lord Gora, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is free of all material desire and maddened with pure love. Revealing his transcendental qualities, he purified Srivasa's Muslim servant and transformed him into a pure devotee. Verse 23 The Lord became jubilant when he heard the physician Murari Gupta's prayers glorifying Lord Rama, and he assumed the form of Lord Rama in the presence of his devotee. Lord Chaitanya mercifully freed the devotee Mukunda from the bad association of the non-devotees. I meditate on that Lord Chaitanya, the best of those who distribute the nectarine mellows of pure devotional service. Verse 24. Lord Chaitanya ordered his 2 Avaduta devotees, Lord Nityananda and Haridasa Thakura, to give the holy names of Lord Krishna, the master of Gokula, to all living entities, high and low, in all towns and villages, everywhere. Meditate upon that Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has mercifully descended to this world. Verse 25 Traveling to the home of Advaita Acharya, Lord Chaitanya, accompanied by his elder brother, Nityananda Prabhu, met, in the town named Lalita, a cheating pseudo sannyasi, addicted to drinking wine. The Lord instructed him about the purity of genuine spiritual life. Meditate on Lord Chaitanya, the abode of pure devotional service, who grants auspiciousness to the sincere devotees. Verse 26. When Lord Advaita Acharya became a preacher of the cheating impersonal philosophy, Lord Gaurahari, out of affection and mercy, beat him on the back, forcing him to again enter the path of devotional service. I continually meditate on that eternal and pure Lord, Gaurahari, who removes the illusion of impersonal philosophy. Verse 27 At Chandrasekhara's house, Lord Gauranga manifested the form of Srimati Lakshmi Devi and fed with his milk the devotees present, who were all immersed in the ocean of pure devotional service. The Lord showed his transcendental opulences to Vijaya Dasa and delivered him. Meditated upon that Lord Gauranga, the abode of all transcendental potencies and opulences. Verse 28. Accompanied by his devotees, Lord Gauranga traveled to Godruma and many other villag, where he performed many pastimes, bathed, honored the prasada of Lord Krishna, and continually chanted the holy names of Lord Hari, hardly sleeping. Throughout the entire day, meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who grants the happiness of pure devotional service. Verse 29 accompanied by his Sankirtana party, headed by Srinivasa Acharya, Lord Gauranga filled with pure love of God the innermost chambers of the hearts of Jagadananda Vipra and many other fallen and sinful brahmanas throughout the country of Bengal, meditate upon that Lord Gauranga, who is an ocean of pure love of God, and the shelter of the fallen. Verse 30 explaining the path of devotional service in the company of the pious devotees, Lord Gauranga taught by the manifestation of his own ecstatic pure love of God, and delivered them, mercifully cleansing away all their sins. One mediated upon that Lord Gauranga, who is the personification of forgiveness of his own devotees' faults. Verse 31 Lord Gauranga liberated Kanda Kazi, who was the great enemy of the blissful Sankirtana festival. When this was accomplished, the Lord repeatedly chanted the holy names of Lord Krishna in all the towns of Navadvipa Dhamma, with a blissful festival of dancing. I meditate upon that Lord Gauranga, whose arms are very long, and who is overwhelmed by the ecstatic activity of dancing in Sankirtana. Verse 32 Gangadasa, the physician Murari Gupta, Kolaveka Sridhara, and Suklamabara Brahmachari were greatly devoted to Lord Gauranga and filled with pure love of God. Srila Narayani Devi took great happiness in honoring the remnants of foodstuff eaten by Lord Gauranga. I meditate upon that Lord Gauranga, the Supreme Person whose form is splendid and transcendental. Verse 33 Overwhelmed with love for Srivasa Thakura, Lord Gauranga, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, caused Srivasa's dead son to speak the supremely auspicious truth of spiritual life. In this way the Lord pacified the hearts of Srivasa and his servants. Offer my respectful obeisances unto that Lord Gauranga, who is free of all duplicity, and who is the deliverer of the living entities. Verse 34 When Lord Gauranga became greatly overwhelmed by experiencing the transcendental love felt by the gopis, some foolish smarta brahmanas, attached to controversy and debate, tried to criticize him. When the Lord took a stick in his hand and struck them, they began to hate the Lord and harbor a desire for revenge. I meditate upon that Lord Gauranga, who became like a splendid transcendental lion to chastise those averse to him. Verse 35 Wishing to remove the offenses of those smarta brahmanas, the Lord accepted the renounced order of sannyasa in the town of Kadwa, during the month of Magha, from Kasava Bharati. In this way the Lord became supremely worshipable by the best of learned scholars in this world. Meditate upon that Lord Chaitanya, who held a sannyasi danda, his head shaved as a sign of renunciation. Verse 36 Abandoning his home and relatives in Navadvipa, and conquered by love for Lord Nityananda, Lord Krishna Caitanyakandra wandered through Bengal, and finally reached the town of Santipura. I meditate upon that Lord Gauranga, who earnestly desired to visit the holy Dhamma of Brajavini. Verse 37 The Lord's mother was brought there to Santipura. Simultaneously joyful and grief-stricken she fed and protected her son there for some days. Devotedly obeying his mother's orders, the Lord then traveled to Jagannatha Puri. I meditate upon that Lord Gauranga, whose traveling made the entire country auspicious, and who is the monarch of sannyasas. Verse 38 Lord Nityananda, the greatly learned and intelligent Jagadananda Pandita and Damodara, and Mukunda Das, who was greatly expert in singing about Lord Krishna's pastimes, were all greatly devoted to the Lord and became like bumblebees drinking the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. These devotees became Lord Chaitanya's associates on his journey to Jagannatha Puri. Meditate on that Lord Gauranga, whose transcendental form is most dear to the devotees. Verse 39 Leaving the land of Bengal, which is situated on the shores of the Ganges, the Lord saw the ocean, which is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the land of Orissa, full of charming gardens, he saw the deity of Ksira Kora Gopinatha, and in the village of Kadwa, he saw his own form of Lord Saksi Gopala. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who has assumed the form of a devotee, and become thus absorbed in his own devotional service. Verse 40 In the forest of Ekamra, which is sacred to Lord Shiva, Lord Gauranga offered respectful obeisances to Lord Shiva's linga form. When Lord Gauranga arrived at the auspicious town of Kapotaka, he set his Sani Dsa Danda down, and Lord Nityananda picked it up and broke it. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who appears disguised as a human being, and who is greatly devoted to his devotees. Verse 41 When the Lord's danda was broken, he pretended to become angry, and left his associates alone. He quickly arrived at Jagannatha Puri, and when he saw the form of Lord Krishna, he became greatly ecstatic. I meditate upon that golden Lord Gauranga, who gave up his sannyasi danda. Verse 42 When the Lord relished the transcendental ecstasy of love for Krishna, he was by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. That service destroyed all the unwanted material impurities within Sarvabhauma's heart, and he became a Vaisnava devotee by Lord Gauranga's great and powerful mercy. Meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who is the personified form of truth in the exposition of Vedic philosophy. Verse 43. After staying for some days at Jagannatha Puri, the Lord traveled to South India. At Kurmaksetra he cured the leper Vasudeva, and at Vijayanagara he gave Ramananda Raya the ocean of pure love of God. Meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who gives great pleasure to the living entities, and who is the personified form of all holy places. Verse 44 The Lord traveled to many places and distributed pure love of Krishna wherever he went. He stayed for some days at Reintroducing, and mercifully converted Venakata Bhatta, his family, and the local scholars into pure devotees of Lord Krishna. Meditate on that golden Lord Chaitanya, who is an ocean of happiness for the home of Gopala Bhatta. Verse 45. Preaching Lord Krishna's pure devotional service, by his own transcendental potency, Lord Gaurachandra converted all the Buddhists and Jains, who do not worship God, Tattvavadas, as well as those who had fallen into the lake of impersonal Mayavada philosophy, into auspicious pure devotees of the Lord. Offer my respectful obeisances to that Lord Gaurachandra, the purifier of the mental speculators. Verse 46 In this way the Lord gave the transcendental bliss of devotion for Lord Krishna which removes all the impurities of the age of Kali, to the people of South India. Accompanied by Krishna Dasa, and carrying two devotional literators, Brahmasamhita and Krishna Karnamrta, the Lord traveled to Jagannatha Puri, via the road to Alalhatha. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who is the protector of the devotees. Verse 47. At Jagannatha Puri, the Lord, whose complexion was the luster of pure gold, resided at Kasi Misra's house. Accompanied by Svartipa Damodara Goswami and his other associates, he continually gave to all living entities the spiritual bliss of chanting Lord Krishna's holy names. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who is accompanied by his associates. Verse 48 When Lord Jagannatha ascended his chariot, Lord Gauranga danced before the Lord and chanted the glories of his transcendental qualities. Lord Gauranga then drowned King Prataparudra, and the other pure devotees of Orissa, with his tears. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who is an ocean of transcendental bliss, and who appears to be the personification of ecstatic love of God. Verse 49. Leaving his Orson associates at the border, the Lord went to Bengal. I meditate upon that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi. Verse 50 The Lord saw Shrivasa Thakura, Vasudeva Dasa, and Raghava Pandita at their homes, and then went on to Santipura. I meditate on that Lord G. Orasundara. Verse 51 The Lord went to Kuliagrama in Navadvipa and visited the home of Vikaspati Desai, the town of Vidyanagara. I worship that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse 52. Because Devananda Dasa worshipped the Lord's devotees with great humbleness, he attained Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, which cannot be purchased by any amount of wealth, followers, beauty or learning. I offer my respectful obeisances to that golden Lord Chaitanya, who is only attained by the pure devotional service of the learned devotees, who are free from the inebrities of material life. Verse 53 On the pretext of going on pilgrimage to see Vrindavana, the Lord affectionately saw his mother in the land of Bengal and delivered Ripa Goswami and his elder brother Sanatana Goswami from the mouth of the Muslims. The independent Supreme Lord then returned to Orissa. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, whose heart becomes joyful when he delivers his own devotees. Verse 54 As he traveled through the jungle, the Lord caused the bears, tigers and other wild animals to become intoxicated with spiritual ecstasy by his own personal transcendental potency. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who enchanted the minds of the animals with spiritual bliss. Verse 55 In Vrindavana, the Lord saw the different villages, the Yamuna River and Govardhana Hill. Overwhelmed by remembering in ecstatic love the pastimes Lord Krishna previously performed there, Lord Gauranga fainted in ecstasy. For this reason Balabhadra persuaded the Lord to leave the forest of Braja. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who became devastated by transcendental ecstasy, and who was very submissive to the wishes of his own devotee. Verse 56 Some fortunate Muslims observed that Lord Gauranga had fainted on the road, absorbed in ecstatic love. The minds of those Muslims became purified by the Lord, and by His grace they all became pure devotees, overwhelmed with love of Krishna. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, whose form is supremely pure, and who removes the impurity of low birth. Verse 57 At sacred Prayaga, at the junction of the Ganges and Yamuna rivers, the Lord taught the most exalted mellows of transcendental love to Srila Rapa Goswami. He also taught the nature of pure love for Lord Krishna, the master of Gokula, to the learned and intelligent Vallabhacharya. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who is the jewel among teachers of the transcendental mellows, and who is the personified Vedic scriptures. Verse 58 At Varanasi, by the mercy of his devotee, the Lord inundated the dried-up Mayavadi philosophers, devoid of the nectar of transcendental mellows, with the nectar of pure love of Krishna. It was there that the Lord empowered Srila Sanatana Goswami, Ripa Goswami's elder brother, to write transcendental literatures about Lord Vishnu's devotional service. I offer my respectful obeisances to that Lord Gauranga, the spiritual master of those expert at performing devotional service. Verse 59 The followers of Sankaracharya began to speak many words, exclaiming, to hell with those who do not offer obeisances to Lord Gauranga. To hell with those who have been burned by the dry logic of the Mayavada philosophy, sent those great souls, the monarchs of the sannyasis, then worshipped Lord Gauranga. Meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who was greatly agitated with transcendental happiness. Verse 60 When Lord Gaurahari returned to Jagannatha Puri, he became very pleased. He showered the nectarine description of pure love of Krishna and the transcendental mellows, rasas, upon Ramananda Raya, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and the other devotees. Meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who is absorbed in relishing the mellows of transcendental love for Lord Hari. Verse 61 Year after year at the time of the Rathayatra festival, the great devotees would travel from Bengal and assemble at Jagannatha Puri to see the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, which are glorified by the prayers of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Attaining great satisfaction at heart, they then return to Bengal. I meditate on that Lord Chaitanya, the monarch of sannyasis, and the supreme friend of the Bengali devotees. Verse 62 In order to protect his sannyasi followers from the various vices which follow from much conversation between sannyasis and women, the Lord rejoiced when he rejected Chota Haridasa for a small offense. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, whose activities are always faultless, and who is the personification of a genuine. Verse 63 Lord Gauranga very mercifully taught Pradyumna Misra the confidential truth that even if because of past karma, a person takes birth in a low family, he may become a spiritual master if he very intelligently understands the truth of spiritual life. I meditate on that Lord Gauranga, who is free from all folly, and who is like a bumblebee, relishing the transcendental virtues of others. Verse 64 Conquered by Raghunatha Dasa Goswami's devotional service, the Lord directly taught him the truth of Krishna Bhakti, with the affectionate feelings of a father. At the last part of his pastimes at Jagannatha Putri, situated on the seashore, the Lord made Raghunatha Dasa his servant. Meditate on that Lord Gauranga, the friend of those who jubilantly take shelter of his lotus feet. Verse 65 The Lord always tolerated the offenses of Ramachandra Puri, who was fond of blaspheming his superiors, and who appeared to have become bewildered and fallen into the muddy well of quarrelsomeness. The Lord accepted Amogha Dasa as one of his associates, because the latter had attained a little fragment of the devotee's mercy. May that Lord, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 66 By touching him, the Lord mercifully cured Sanatana Goswami, who was afflicted with the disease of itching sores. The Lord also purified Sanatana of the desire to commit suicide. I meditate on that Lord Gaurasundara, the hero of Navadvipa. Verse 67 The independent Lord protected Gopinatha Patanayaka, his own devotee, who was the younger brother of Ramananda Taya, from the wrath of Maharaja Prataparudra. The Lord instructed Gopinatha about the nature of piety, saying that one should not collect money by sinful means. Meditate on that Lord Gauranga, the personification of auspiciousness, who grants auspiciousness to his devotees. Verse 68. I continually meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Gauranga, who continually received many respectfully offered gifts from his own devotee, Raghava Pandita, even brought from his own country, Bengal. Verse 69. I meditate upon Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who strictly followed the rules of sannyasa, and refused to accept the oil offered by Jagannananda Pandita. Verse 70. Near the Garuda Stamba, in the temple of Lord Jagannatha, a certain old woman, overwhelmed with love for the Lord, became able to see the form of Lord Jagannatha by climbing Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Hari, who was greatly satisfied at heart with that woman, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 71. The Lord was greatly devoted to the lotus feet of Isvarapuri, whom he considered to be his spiritual master. He was affectionately merciful to Govinda Dasa, who purely served him. He delighted Savripa Damodara Goswami by revealing to him the most exalted Madhura Rasa. May that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 72. Lord Chaitanya wore a splendid saffron kaupina and his form was as brilliant as the golden mountain Sumeru. As he chanted the holy names of Radha and Krishna, a river of tears flowed from his eyes. May that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 73. Lord Chaitanya loudly chanted the sweet holy names of Lord Hari and danced in the streets and roads of Jagannatha Puri, along with his followers. With a plaintive voice he appealed, "Friend, please chant the 2 syllables Hari." May that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 74. Lord Chaitanya mercifully revealed the secret of pure love of God, which has 10 phases. That secret was formerly unknown to the sages, and it was not described in the Vedic scriptures. May that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 75. The Vedas teach us, according to Chaitanya, 9 principal doctrines, which are 1. Hari, the Almighty, is one without a second. 2. He is always vested with infinite power. 3. He is the ocean of rasa, the transcendental bliss which forms the essence of any relationship. 4. The soul is his vivanatsa, or separated part. 5. Certain souls are engrossed by prakrti, his illusory energy. 6. Certain souls are released from the grasp of prakrti. 7. All spiritual and material phenomenon are Bhadabheda Prakasa of Hari, the Almighty, simultaneously one and different with the Lord. 8. Bhakti, devotional service, is the only means of attaining the final object of spiritual existence. 9. Prema, pure love in Krishna, is alone the final object of spiritual existence. Verse 76. Perfect Vedic knowledge was received by Lord Brahma, who directly received Lord Hari's mercy, and by those following him. Vedic truths, which may be summarized in the preceding 9 axioms, should be accepted as the only truths in higher matters. Direct perception, reason, etc., while sincerely helping the inspired Vedic truths, may be accepted as auxiliary evidence. By themselves reason and logic have no power to reveal to us the truth. Verse 77. Lord Hari, the Supreme Being, is one without a second. Lord Brahma, Shiva and Indra offer respectful obeisances to him. His bodily effulgence is the impersonal Brahman effulgence which is free from any material contamination. The all-pervading supersoul is his parietal manifestation. He is the father of the universe. He is the transcendental lover of Srimati Radharani. His purely spiritual form has the luster of a fresh rain cloud. Verse 78. All glories to the Supreme Person, Lord Hari, who remains situated in his own majesty. Free from any material transformation or defect. He is non-different from his transcendental potencies. He is the controller of various energies divided into 3 groups. 1. The superior transcendental potency. 2. The living entities. 3. The inanimate material nature. Verse 79. All glories to Lord Hari, who takes great pleasure in relishing the transformations of ecstatic love which are manifested by the Hladini potency and tastes the confidential and exalted spiritual loving sentiments manifested by the Sathanvit potency. He is immersed in the ocean of transcendental mellows in his various transcendental abodes, beyond the touch of matter, which are manifested by his Sandini potency. He performs pastimes exchanging loving relationships with the residents of Brajabhumi. Verse 80. Just as the sparks are to a great fire, and just as the particles of sunlight are to the sun, in the same way, the living entities are simultaneously one and different from Lord Hari. Lord Hari is always the supreme master of the illusory potency Maya, whereas the living entities, even in the liberated condition, are liable to become subject to the influence of Maya, because of their smallness. Verse 81 chaining them with the shackles of the three modes of material nature, Lord Hari's illusory potency, Maya, punishes those souls averse to Krishna and intent on their own enjoyment, without any conception of their actual spiritual self-interest. Maya then applies a double case of gross and subtle material elements on the fallen souls and shackles them with the chains of laborious fruitive activities, which are sources of great distress. Binding the fallen souls in this way, Maya leads them up and down through the various celestial and hellish planetary systems. Verse 82. After repeatedly wandering in the path of Mayic existence, a fallen soul may meet a pure Vaisnava from whom trickles the nectar of the mellows of pure devotion to Lord Hari. By following that pure devotee, he becomes attracted to imbibe the sweet principle of devotional service, Krishna Bhakti _. By constant study of Krishna Bhakti, he slowly abandons the Mayic condition, and in the end obtaining his true nature, he enjoys the sweetest unalloyed rasa, which is the ultimate status of the soul. Verse 83 All spiritual and material existence is the transformation of Lord Hari's energy. Sankara's conception that everything is a transformation of the Supreme itself is an impurity spawned by the age of Kali, and contradicts the actual Vedic idea. The Vedas establish the pure truth that everything is simultaneously one and different from Lord Hari, and because of this truth, perfect spiritual love may be eternally manifest. Verse 84. The 9 different forms of devotional service to Lord Hari are: to hear of the spiritual name, form, attributes and Lila, pastimes of Krishna. To utter and sing all those. To meditate and reiterate all those. Service of his holy feet. Worship. Bowing down. Doing all that pleases him. Friendship 9. Resignation. One who has great faith in these 9 principles of devotion, and follows them in his daily worship of the Lord, will quickly become blessed with pure love of God prema. Om Amabw Nay. Verse 85 The spiritual aspirant then attains his original spiritual form, and the exalted pure love of Madhura Rasa arises within him. He bears in his heart the pure love of the intimate associates of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna in Brajapum. He becomes full of bliss in that state of pure love, and his happiness exceeds anything in this material universe. He attains the supreme service of Lord Krishna in the Lord's transcendental pastimes. Verse 86 Considering the questions, who is the Supreme Lord, what is the nature of the living entities, and what is this inanimate material universe, a scholar learned in the Vedic scriptures describing Lord Hari's devotional service, completely abandons the desire for liberation. That person becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, and shunning material pious activities and duties, as well as various offenses to the Lord, drinks the nectar of the bliss of chanting Lord Hari's holy names in the company of devotees. Verse 87 Accepting these axioms, abandoning ignorance, and remaining in the association of saintly devotees, one's love for the Supreme increases and he becomes happy. Verse 88. Lord Chaitanya is the best of the Sannidhas and the unparalleled friend of the universe. His tall, blissful, effulgent spiritual form is bathed by the trickling tears of ecstatic love of God. He instructs these truths to the devotees, who are like bumblebees eager to drink the honey of his lotus feet. May that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 89 Lord Chaitanya is the supreme shelter of the Bengali followers of the Narnasrama system, those Orisans who are sincere, honest, and humble at heart, and the people in the Western countries who are compassionate and eager to learn the truth. May that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sak Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 90. At Kasi Misra's house, Lord Chaitanya exhibited the most astonishing symptoms of ecstasy. His heart anxiously longing in separation from his own Lord Krishna, the joints of Lord Chaitanya's body became loosened, his body became very long, and his hands and feet expanded. He fell on the ground, his words choked up, and his mind greatly agitated in the ecstasy of pure love of Krishna. Lay that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 91 Lord Chaitanya astonishingly left the middle of the stone house of Kasi Misra, whose doors were bolted, and went outside, and wandered among the cows of the Kalinga district. Amidst the cows, his limbs contracted into his body, and he appeared like a turtle who had fallen there. May that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 92. Remembering the land of Brajabhumi, Lord Chaitanya became overwhelmed with feelings of separation from Krishna, and lamented with great agitation within his heart. He rubbed his face into the ground, causing it to profusely bleed, and said, "Where is my lover Krishna? Tell me. Tell me. Tell me." Sent may that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 93. In ecstasy, Lord Chaitanya thought that the great sand dune Kakata Parvata on the ocean beach was actually the king of mountains, Govardhana Hill in Brajabhumi. He jubilantly and swiftly ran with his associates to see that hill. May that Lord Chaitanya, the transcendental son of Srimati Sachi Devi, eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 94. Lord Gaurachandra rescued Raghunatha Dasa from the blind well of material existence and gave a Gunja necklace and a Salagrama Sila stone to him as gifts. With great devotion, offer respectful obeisances to that Lord Gaurachandra, whose mercy delights all living entities. Verse 95. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Gaurachandras, who rejected the opponents of pure devotional service, and the inimical Prakrita Sahajiyads. Giving up the association of non-devotees, the Lord appeared very splendid and glorious in the company of saintly devotees. Verse 96. With great devotion, offer respectful obeisances to that Lord Gaurachandra, who gave the nectarine mellows of pure love of Krishna to the elevated confidential devotees. In this world, the Lord gave the chanting of Lord Vishnu's holy names to the devotees in general, and thus purified the contaminated age of Kali. Verse 97. Lord Gaurachandra removes all the offenses in chanting the holy names committed by those who take shelter of his name. He grants the most elevated forms of pure devotional service to the living entities. With great devotion, I offer respectful obeisances to that Lord Gaurachandra. Verse 98. In this way the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing in his original transcendental form of Sri Krishna Caitanya, performed pastimes for 24 years as a householder, and another 24 years as a sannyasi. Offer my respectful obeisances to that Lord Krishna Caitanya, the spiritual master of all universes, and people in all stations of life. Verse 99. Lord Gauranga mercifully gave clothing and money to the poor, and he satisfied hungry guests by giving them varieties of foodstuff. In the same way he gave great happiness by the distribution of the great treasure of transcendental knowledge. May that Lord Gauranga eternally travel on the path of my memory. Verse 100. On the pretext of traveling to various places of pilgrimage, the Lord spent the first 6 years of his sannyasa in preaching the pure devotional service of Lord Krishna, and the final 18 years he remained in Jagannatha Puri. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Gauranga's transcendental pastimes, manifested in this world by the Yogamaya potency. Verse 101. Alas, alas, the devotees throughout the entire universe became filled with intense grief when Lord Gauranga, enchanting the devotees' eyes during the sunset Sankirtana in the Tota Gopinatha temple, suddenly disappeared. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Gauranga's eternal, spiritual pastimes which are not manifest within this world. Verse 102. May Lord Krishna Caitanya, the jewel of the Brahmanas, grant pure love for the transcendental couple Shri S11 Radha Krishna, to those devotees who regularly sing, especially at Sridhama Mayapura, with a loud voice and heart moistened with spiritual love, this song we have composed about Lord Gauranga. May the Lord become their dear friend. Verse 103. In the month of Kartika, in the year 406, Chaitanya era, in Godruma Dvipa, Bhaktivinoda Thakura composed this song glorifying Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, which purify the entire world. Verse 104. In order to taste the intense love experienced by Srimati Radharani during their amorous pastimes, Lord Krishna, the transcendental son of Maharaja Nanda, manifested his pastimes as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the country of Bengal. This astonishing song, full of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, is now offered to that Srimati Radharani, the daughter of King Griyabhanu.